And the whole thing with, okay, we're just going to kill everybody, and he didn't learn nothing, just really stuck in my craw pretty bad when he went back and said, right, I just changed the wrong thing, and we're just going to go do this all over again. Yeah, the ending made me want to hit my head against the wall a few times.
All right, so let's move to what I think were the scene stealers and the real stars of this film, and that would be Keaton's Batman and Sasha Calle as Supergirl, although they made her Kara. In the context of this film, I could see that. You know, I like traditional blonde, blue-eyed Kara Zor-El. In the context of what they're doing here, I could see that. I could kind of go with that. But Keaton is the scene stealer. Just about a lot of people have asked me, what is it about his Batman that makes him a fan favorite, and why does he stand out versus the other live action Batman? The answer to that question is Keaton is the only one that gets that the Bat is bigger than Bruce, that the Bat is something that Bruce can't help. The Bat is something that was born when Bruce's parents were killed in front of him, and it split his psyche. And Keaton has always played Batman and Bruce Wayne like they're not all there. Like there's a conversation going on in their head that we're not privy to, but it's an intense one, and it has to do with that hurt little boy versus this man dressed up in a bat costume and who's fighting for dominance, a lot of different stuff. And Keaton has always played this Bruce Wayne Batman like that because he gets the split psyche and he gets the anger. He gets what would have happened to that little boy seeing his parents murdered, and the rest of them, they did it for a couple of scenes and then they dropped it. But that's always been the standout for me. But his Batman was a standout here, even though I think he broke character a couple of times and did some snarky lines. I'm like, Batman's not snarky. But anyway, so, and then we have Sasha Calle's Supergirl. She's not really developed that much, but for what we see in terms of her motivation and all the different kind of stuff, I definitely enjoyed her much more than I thought I would, but everything happens so fast. And so we don't get to see a lot of time with anybody. But I thought they were the scene stealers. I thought they were the breakout characters of the film. Everything that Keaton did with a piece of his tech was incredible. The bat plane, I mean, it's just awesome. Just falling down in the pose with the bat plane up against the moon, straight out the comics, but that was great. I mean, I really wish he had come back in a better movie, but that to me, and I think that's what they were counting on. It just seems, according to the box office, that still wasn't enough to overcome people's reservations and disconnect from the film. But it was still awesome to see. The only problem I had with Sasha's Kara is that once again, Lord have mercy, she had instant power mastery. She's in the sun 5 minutes, literally 5 minutes. She's got strength, she's got flight, she's got super speed, she can control it all. She has a little emotional outburst to find her heat vision, but that's within 24 hours of being within the sun. And then we see her have a little glitch with a super hearing. She couldn't filter things out. I gave him that. But I mean, if she hadn't powered up the way she did, they were dead. And that is my biggest pet peeve with Kryptonians, because everybody does that except Clark. He was here as a baby. He grew up under the sun, but everybody else comes here. And all of a sudden they just have me say, no, that I just didn't like that. But otherwise, I love their scenes. I loved everything in the Batcave. I liked, it also reminded me that we've said for years they ought to do a Batman Beyond with Keaton as old Bruce. That would completely work. So I just loved everything about it. As a matter of fact, I would take the bat scenes out and make that a movie. I'd watch that. But really, really like that. So let me hear what you guys think about what I think are the two scene stealers. But if you disagree, definitely let me hear your pick. Start with it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Ultimately speaking, this was supposed to be a reintroduction to this character. They had massive plans for him. Obviously, he was in the Batgirl film that got canceled. He was supposed to get a Batman Beyond film. He was supposed to be part of Crisis on Infinite Earths as a film. There were all these plans for this character to have, further chances to build this sort of new version of Batman that he has here. And at the same time, you get so much with the small moments that you have with him here. And you just get to see exactly what you said, which is the crazy. And the crazy is what made Keaton stand out as Batman like nobody else. And there's no one that even comes close. There's not a single Batman, in history that holds a candle to this version, because, you have to be crazy to be Batman. You have to be a little bit crazy at, putting on a costume and going out at night, fighting crime. All of these things are not sane things. And there's way too many portrayals of Batman that are just too logical and too thoughtful, and not enough of that little bit of crazy that you need. And Keaton just got that. He got that down from the beginning.
Absolutely. Electra.
Well, I'll agree with you on who the standouts were. I'll disagree with you a little bit about why. Part of it is that, well, humor is hard, and Keaton came to us from comedy, and he brought in that crazy. We saw the crazy in Beetlejuice first. He was the first guy to really understand that Bruce Wayne and Batman had to be two different people when he was on screen, and he was the best Bruce Wayne we ever got. Right up front. He was a really good Bruce Wayne, and then he just let it all go for Batman. And that first movie, when he was there on screen and he just looked at whoever it was and said, "I'm Batman." And that was it. I was sitting in a theater at the midnight show the first time that Tim Burton Batman was shown, and we knew that movie was going to do it. And then we got all those comic book movies after. I can still remember how I felt watching that with the Danny Elfman music. It's unforgettable.
Once again, I hate to keep beating the same drum, but if they actually read a comic, Bruce became Batman to scare criminals. That was his monologue. Criminals are superstitious, cowardly lot. I need to become something big, terrifying, ugly to scare them. He wanted to scare the thing that scared him as a boy. Keaton got that, but everybody after that did not. Steve,
Tim Burton got that.
Okay.
I will add that Kevin Conroy got that.
Yeah. Kevin Conroy definitely got that. What do you think about?
He's still my favorite Batman. But the thing with Batman has always been that there's a balance that you have to walk between Bruce and Batman, and it seems like virtually everybody in live action favors one or the other, but doesn't get both. I will say with Keaton, and why I love him in this movie, he gets the intensity of Batman. Like he he does have that element of the craziness and how much that grief and pain, has broke Bruce Wayne. He completely channels that well, and you even see that like in the scene where he talks to the older Barry about their shared loss. Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from. You can definitely tell that it hits him where he lives, and he plays that so well. And then at other times, it's like I kind of felt like he got it. Like there were moments where I felt like it reminded me of Kingdom Come Batman. Like there was that moment where they're turning on the machine to give Barry his powers, and the way that Keaton leans over it, and then he has that smile. It looked like Alex Ross drawing Kingdom Come Batman in that one scene. Like you can tell that he did his homework. You can tell that handling not only this character, but all of the different versions of him that he's seen. He gets the older Batman down. And I really like this version of the character. He's absolutely, for me, the star of the movie. I wish this movie had been a Michael Keaton Batman movie because he just carries it so well. And normally you don't see a lot of people come back to a role that they help define, and they still have the same level of energy and the same level of power and the same level of enthusiasm for it. I don't think Keaton skipped a beat at all. If anything, he seems like he's done better. And I was really impressed with that. As for Sasha Calle, I will say that they definitely were trying to aim for Injustice, Kara. I think that's where she appeared. It was one of those Elseworlds written by Tom Taylor. And I think they definitely got the look of her. I think it worked for the Snyderverse version of it. But again, you hit on my problem with her. She gains her powers way too fast. She learns to use them way too fast. Oh, I suddenly learned how to fly. How long did it take for Clark and Man of Steel to figure out how to fly? It was like, no, you're not picking that up that fast. You're just not. You're going to be, if you do try to do that, you're going to be launching yourself in the walls or the ceiling or the floor or something. No, I didn't buy that. I understand why, because they had to have her get to that point so she'd be able to fight Zod. But once again, it kind of brings back the problem of doing it like that. Is because they're using Flashpoint and the Flashpoint Superman thing and welding it to this Injustice version of Kara. And it's like, okay, that version, the Flashpoint Superman was likewise sealed away. He was basically Lonnie and didn't have his powers, and so they kind of wanted to echo that. And you have the problem is it's also supposed to be Snyder, and in the Snyderverse, the only reason why Clark was able to compete with the other Kryptonians was because he spent all of his life in the sun, and he had been absorbing all of that yellow sunlight. Yeah, I mean, there's no surprise of dying a couple of times, because really she shouldn't have been able to last that long. She's fighting trained soldiers, all of whom have the same power that she does, and have been in the sun about as long as she has, maybe more. And it doesn't add up. It just doesn't make any sense. That having been said, I thought her performance was fine. I think that she, did the role in a solid way. I thought that, she looked good in the suit. I think, that she made it look good, flowing, and she has those good moments. But, ultimately, the problem is like you've got Michael Keaton standing right over there, and he is stealing this movie, and he is not giving it back. He absolutely owns this movie. And I don't think there's any question about that.
But that's also why I could watch this movie over and over again for the rest of my life. I mean, just for that alone, it's just epic. It was great.
Well, I think everything you named, Sid, would have happened that actually was a standalone Keaton Batman movie. All the stuff that would have followed, I think still could have followed, as opposed to sandwiching it in this film. Okay. So as we move to the conclusion, 2 more things we need to talk about, or maybe 2 to 3. First thing we need to talk about is, now I'm just going to throw this out, and I know this is going to be blasphemy to a lot of people, but oh well, I have never cared for Michael Shannon Zod. I just don't care for him. Just don't like it. Just don't like anything.
You're not alone.
No, I just don't like anything in that, because I don't like the whole version of Krypton that they created. It's another thing that I found absolutely ridiculous. You're in Earth's atmosphere for how long? And then you're talking about how long did Clark train, and you think your training and wherever you did would put you on par with somebody that grew up here. No, the only piece of content that ever honored Superman's years here was Kingdom Come. Well, Lex Luthor said Superman's been guzzling yellow sunlight all these years. He's at the height of his invulnerability. That's the only anyway that I've seen that honored what the years under the yellow sun would do to Kal-El, as opposed to these fly-by-nighters who've been here like an hour and they're going toe-to-toe to him. No, when you train in 0G to be an astronaut, you have to get used to that. When you have a gravity change, you have to get used to how your body moves differently. So, no, it's just my opinion, but no. So his Zod has never done anything for me. Every time he's on the screen, I'm just rolling my eyes. I'm like, are you done yet? Go get a Lister strip and, calm down. But anyway, so we get into this other thing with these fixed points in time. And once again, so Supergirl dies and they supplant Superman, Zod saying that, well, Kal-El wasn't really the one we were waiting for. And the Infra didn't survive. So we just killed him off. But, we really need your DNA. And then Keaton's Batman dies. And so that's what triggers the last major event of the film. But it becomes a fixed point, and no matter how many times. So our Barry's talking to young Barry saying, stop trying. If this is what has to happen, blah, blah, blah. And he makes a big deal. And so once that happened, once again, that just threw me out of it. I'm like, so you brought them back to kill them. And you brought them back to kill them over and over and over again, and nothing we can do about it. You're going to create a crazy villain in the process. I was like, yeah, once again, that just threw me off. I was like, oh, okay, whatever. So then that leads to the creation of Black Flash, which a lot of people know is from the comics. A lot of people don't know it's from the comics, and he's the avatar of death for Speed Force users. So they kind of shoehorned that character in, the same way they shoehorned in Red Flash by making him make a costume out of a old Bat costume. That was kind of a wink as to who Red Flash really is in the comics and who she was on the CW with Batwoman. That's a whole nother. So those are the 2 major events that happen that kind of bring us to the end of the movie. Yes, besides the fact that they were corny to begin with, I guess our Barry spending so much time with young Barry saying this isn't the thing to do, but then he did it to save his dad. He kept saying, can't make changes, let it go, stop trying. So young Barry keeps trying, so it becomes Black Flash in the process. So you see he gets crusted over, you see the metal armaments that got stuck in his arm become a part of him, and he becomes this different character because he would not give up trying to change time. So he turns into this other character. So there's actually 3 Ezra Millers in this movie. So I want to hear you guys' thoughts about, did you agree with the fixed point in time death thing? What do you think about Black Flash? And so just let me hear about that. Start with Zig.
First, I gotta say, Michael Shannon, best Zod ever. All
Yeah,
right, I gotta add that in
you can
there.
have him.
So,
Yes, he
we
can.
went and watched Man of Steel right after watching this. Of course, you've got to go back and watch Man of Steel after seeing this movie, and it's masterful. He creates an empathetic Zod where you can actually believe that he would destroy everything because he's trying to create a new Krypton. He's trying to bring back his people. He's trying to create a new civilization from what was destroyed in the old. And he makes it believable. I buy it. I understand why he had to have his neck snapped. All of that works in that context. Different conversation. As far as the end of this movie and what happens, it was like an after school special where the hero just refused to take part in the after school special. We all want him to learn his lesson, to follow the rules, to do things correctly. That's not what this movie was, and nor should it have been. It would have been a huge mistake for him just to sort of sit on his hands at the end of this film and learn his lesson. Instead, he learned a very different lesson, which is, well, if I can't change one thing because everybody dies, maybe I can try changing something else. And it's absolutely true. He didn't learn anything from his experience. He took it all and he kind of threw it away. That's who he is, and that's what this movie is. And I appreciated that it followed through on the trajectory of where it was going rather than what we expected.
I want you to notice how many times you have used the phrase "threw away," because they just threw stuff away. Just everything didn't make no sense. Electra, what do you think about killing Supergirl and Keaton and Black Flash and all that right there?
Well, first, Michael Shannon, I agree. Ridiculous. Terrence Stamp, best Zod ever. That's just where my head is at. I thought that they wrote this movie and they did not know how to end it properly. And the whole thing with, okay, we're just going to kill everybody, and he didn't learn nothing, just really stuck in my craw pretty bad when he went back and said, right, I just changed the wrong thing, and we're just going to go do this all over again. Yeah, the ending made me want to hit my head against the wall a few times. That was just, no, you didn't. Okay, fine. Not a good way to end it. Frustrating as hell. We'll leave it there.
We're going to pass a new law called Ziggy's Law that requires you to put a screen on the film and say, this is a comedy, y'all. Now,
listen, I have a lot of criticisms about this movie. I have a lot of criticisms about this movie, but the ending isn't one of them. The CGI is one of them. The cameos were horrible. I agree with all of those things that are being said out in the world. But
sorry, did they not shoehorn in enough cameos for you?
I mean, the cameos were so badly done. They could have just shown film footage instead, and it would have looked better than what they did. But the ending was brilliant. It was brilliant.
I'm sorry. They were trying really hard to see if they could just screw Henry Cavill a little bit harder. And they can we not show Henry Cavill? Let's show Nick Cage.
Well, Henry Cavill was there. He was just part of the CGI when they first time traveled. And they saw him come up. He just looked so bad. But Steve, what do you think? Well, let me hear Steve.
Yeah.
Death of Supergirl, Batman, Black Flash, all that.
I will start with one positive, and that is that Michael Keaton dies like a boss twice in one movie. And he goes out like a badass both times. So I'll give them that bit. As for Zod, I prefer Terrence Stamp. I will always prefer Terrence Stamp. He had a lot of dignity, he had a lot of gravitas in his performance. He will always be Zod to me. But the thing with Michael Shannon is that I really got the sense that he phoned this one in. I felt like in Man of Steel, from what I remember, he had a lot more passion for the role, and that definitely came in. The whole thing in the beginning of "I will find him," and I make fun of that line all the time, but you can't deny that he had a lot of energy when he played it in that. I mean, that was definitely there. Here, it just seems like, okay, I'm reciting lines. I am being a villain now. I am giving you my paycheck. and that's what it came across as. And even in some of his public statements, he doesn't come across as very enthusiastic about this. So I think very probably he just took it for the paycheck, and he doesn't seem to really care about it. And I think that shows on the screen, unfortunately. You say what you want about Keaton, but man, did he give his all into this movie. And Shannon unfortunately didn't. And honestly, he's not really that consequential except to be the antagonist that ends up, causing Kara and Keaton's Batman to die. And honestly, I don't think it had to be a question of this was a fixed point in time and this will always happen. You never had, if you really wanted to make a situation where there was no way to win, I think fighting an army of Kryptonians with only 4 people, only 3 of whom have powers, and only 1 of them who can even compete with them at all, that would do it. They could just say, this is an impossible situation. We can't win. We're dealing with Thermopylae here. We cannot win. And if it had been a situation like that and presented in those terms, it wouldn't have been so bad. But instead, it goes back to Barry needs his tragedy. He needs to lose his mother to be a hero. And this is one of the things that bothered me. And I still agree with what Elektra is saying, because it hits one of my personal pet peeves, and that is the character don't learn nothing trope. What did we learn? Is it nothing? Yay, nothing! And that seems to be what Barry is doing in this movie. It's just, I really can't stand characters that do not learn from their experiences or really change at all. You want to have an arc where these characters grow and evolve from their experiences, and they don't just regress because the plot needs it to happen. And this is unfortunately a situation where I agree with Elektra. This ending was rushed. Definitely the CGI was rushed. It didn't look good at all.
Okay,
they could have fit like 500,000 characters from the Flash, and here's Nicolas Cage fighting a giant spider. So yeah,
okay. We're going to talk about that.
Didn't work. Except for Keaton, it didn't work.
We're going to talk about that specifically. You can't make me like Michael Shannon's job. You know how we met him? The geniuses on Krypton said we're going to put the criminals in a space that's safe, and we're going to stay on the planet while it explodes. We're going to let the criminals survive, but we're going to die. And then we're going to put all of our DNA in the codex, and we're going to make sure that the people that we exiled because they tried to stage a coup, they get to live, but we're going to go out like a boss. We're going to take it to the chest. I'm like, no, y'all stupid. But anyway.
And they also retroactively ruined Man of Steel by having Kara be the one that is the receptacle instead of Clark.
Right. But we know they're doing everything they can to minimize Superman and stick it to Cavill, unfortunately. Which leads us to the CGI and the cameos. I have not heard one person say one good thing about the CGI. The cameos have been a mixed bag, but I haven't heard anybody praise the CGI. So I didn't mind the cameos, although I maybe would have picked different people. That Nick Cage thing, that's another thing that's an insider's wink. We didn't get this, but we should have, so I'm going to throw it in just because y'all didn't want to do it. I would have rather it have been in a vehicle that honored, because if you know anything about George Reeves, if you know anything about Adam West, these men, those shows were huge. I mean, Batman 66 was literally the biggest thing on TV. So if you could think about, I
was watching it.
So maybe I'll say Game of Thrones. Once a year, we get a show that captures a global audience. It just becomes a thing. So instead of a niche audience, it seems like most of the people on the planet have to watch this show. So Batman 66 wasn't maybe quite at that fever pitch, but it was up there. And so in George Reeves' Superman is where we get truth, justice, and the American way. That came from his show. If you don't know anything about Superman's history, his elements are piecemeal. So every different incarnation of Superman contributed something to his larger mythology. He wasn't created all at once. And so I'm saying these two giants alone, Reeves and West, need to have some respect on their name. I mean, they made a huge difference. They were the Batman and Superman of their generation bleeding into, the children's generation and all that. So I would have rather have seen them for more than a few seconds. I would have rather seen them in a better movie, something that was honoring them, not just throwing them in for nostalgia bait member berries. The Nick Cage Superman stuff, I forgot so quickly. I had to edit my movie review to put him back in there because I forgot it that fast. I was like, oh, yeah, this was in there too, that kind of thing. And then the big one was, of course, Christopher Reeve and Helen Slater. A lot of people reacted like that was sacrilege. A lot of people took deep offense to that maybe that was some kind of desecration to his memory or something. I don't know if I would take it that far, but I felt more like, once again, because all they did was look at the worlds collide. So I'm like, if you're going to bring a CGI Chris Reeve back, make it look good. Same with Helen Slater. She's still alive, but, she was CGI to look like she did in '84. And so, make it be maybe a reason more than member berries, maybe have them do a true crisis thing and they all have to come together in one space and save the universes. I don't know. I'm just saying it felt really disproportionate to see such great representations of heroes past in a film that was, like Zig said, maybe a comedy at best, maybe was tongue in cheek, maybe was continually trying to tell us not to take it too seriously. And you take superhero movies too seriously, but you can't have giants of that stature in the film and not give them their propers as far as I'm concerned. And so, yeah, with CGI, just not good. With the cameos, I'm like, okay, but should have been a better film. Go ahead, Electra.
Well, they weren't sure whether they were making a comedy or not, but they did have to stick all that. I'm going to say the bad word. They did need to stick in some fan service to make sure that they got people's attention. And I'm not certain that was a good way of using it, because they threw them in there so fast. And like you said, they didn't treat the people they should have with proper respect, versus throwing in some things just for inside jokes. And Nick Cage and the Spider threw it off.
Right. If they wanted to do something like that, you know what they should have done? They should have done stuff like that from the Flash CW, from the TV show.
Right.
That would have been completely on point for the tenor and tone of this film. If all of a sudden, as Barry opens up these worlds, we see Cisco and we see Caitlin and we see Killer Frost and we see the first time Barry on the CW ran between worlds, and maybe we see Melissa as Supergirl. If they had done that, those kind of winks, and we see Oliver Queen, I think that it would have been way more on point.
Yeah.
I would have done 60s Flash. I would have done 90s Flash too. John Wesley Shipp as Barry.
Wesley Shipp, yes, he should have been there too.
I think ultimately speaking, you look at what Crisis on Infinite Earths did for the for the TV show, and how they did those cameos. And you got like Burt Ward looking up at the sky, and you've got Knox from, Batman 89 looking up at the sky, and you've got all these cameos that you're seeing. You got Ezra Miller showing up. And, that was how you do cameos. You give everybody a tiny moment. On the opposite side, if you're just going to show a flash of people, don't use this horrible AI looking garbage. I mean, it looked the worst it possibly could. On that Crisis show, they killed off like 7 Earths just by saying it in a sentence. They didn't show the special effects. If you can't afford the special effects, don't put them in. Nobody wants to see it done badly. I mean, that's not fan service at all. If you're just showing garbage and putting it up on the screen, just don't show it. It was completely unnecessary to the plot. It wasn't centered around the Flash. It had nothing to do with the Flash. Just show Grant Gustin. Have him show up in that moment. Pay him some money. Give him a little bit of homage, and the fans would have loved you for it. That's all that they wanted to see.
You're right. That moment they gave Burt Ward was fantastic.
Well, we all thought we were going to see the other side of that moment they had on the Flash TV show in this movie, which would have been the perfect mirror image, like we saw it from Ezra's point of view, like we saw it from Grant's Barry on the CW show. I thought that was a perfect setup. I thought that was an alley-oop. I'm like, y'all know that's a slam dunk moment, right? But and that's why I can't buy them actually being a fan. It's more, this is my kind of humor and you're going to like it, which is not the same as being a fan in my eyes.
It's the director being a fan versus the writers not knowing their way around it. I think the director's a fan. I just don't think the writers were all the way there.
Okay, I'm going to have to chew on that. I'm going to have to chew on that. I don't know how I feel about that, but I'm going to chew on that. Okay, so we're going to go to a close here. And finally, in the last moments. Now, let me tell you something that I learned from music, which is analogous and necessary here. I was always taught that in a musical performance, if you end well, people will forgive you for the mistakes in the middle. If you stick the landing, if you nail that last movement, that last stanza, that last note, if you come to a good conclusion for whatever you're doing, whether it's a concerto or a symphony or a solo piece or whatever you're doing, if you end well, it smooths over any of the mistakes or glitches or whatever in the middle. For me, they did the opposite with this ending. Like, just in case there was any gravitas left in your mind, just in case you might have wanted to take some of this seriously and enjoy the nostalgia. And because what we're going to do now is we're going to have Barry move the tomatoes And then his father looks up, but he doesn't look up normally. He looks up like, do you see my face now? And I was like, okay. And then they had Barry go against his philosophical conversation with young Black Flash. And like you said, I think it was Elektra, no, let me not, change the wrong thing. I can get away with some stuff, so let's do that. And then he's talking to Bruce, and Bruce gets out of the car, and who is it? It's Clooney. And Clooney is standing there trying not to laugh himself, because I know he was thinking, this is really going to make them angry now. They weren't mad at this point, they see me, because, And so I saw that, and then the last shot is the fake tooth falling out. I was like, are you Bugs Bunny? It felt like the Looney Tunes kind of ending. I'm like, is Daffy around? I rolled one eye. I was like, really? That's how you end this movie, really, with Clooney and the tooth falling out? I thought they should have brought Mel Blanc back. Talk about, that's all, folks. That's how that movie should end. I was like, really? And then we got to talk about the post-credit scene, which is 2 words, which should not be in the same sentence. Drunk Aquaman. I'm like, y'all realize that the king of the sea couldn't get drunk. Y'all realize that Aquaman could hold his liquor.
It was just horrible. That was horrible.
I'm just saying, so every beat ending this film, because you take away from the heaviness of Barry having to say goodbye to his mother yet one more time, putting the tomatoes back, knowing that's going to cause her death, letting that play out, crying, saying goodbye, tearing himself away from the scene, resigning his mother to that fate. And then you ended with all these beats, and that takes all that weight away.
They broke the tension.
Right.
What'd you say, Steve?
They broke the tension. You have all this tension that you get, from that dramatic ending with the mother, and then you just throw in some goofy comedy and a cameo of George Clooney, and that just totally breaks it.
Right.
There's no dramatic weight after that.
What was interesting was the audience reaction when they didn't see that, right? In the original CinemaCon screening, they cut right before they got to that cameo. So you didn't see what, the audience saw in the real experience. And you saw what the reaction was there. They just loved the movie. They absolutely loved the movie. And if you put Michael Keaton back on the screen at that moment, if you have a situation where you put Henry Cavill back on the screen in that after credits, it's a totally different experience for everybody. You leave that theater with a totally different feeling. You've got Keaton back. Absolutely. Or even Batfleck. I mean, I think ultimately that would have been a little bit more expected, I guess, as an ending. You want something that's a little bit of a twist. I think for what this movie is and where it ended up in terms of its personality and its attitude, I think this works. It makes sense with what the movie is at this point. I think everything that you hate about the movie is what the Clooney cameo is, right? And so I think ultimately speaking, the number of people that were kept arguing that it's not possible that Michael Keaton could look like George Clooney, and that it's not possible that George Clooney could be in the same movie as Michael Keaton Batman, as if the movie cares, right? As if the movie has any inkling of logic in that regard. And it continued that trend of just throw all expectations out the window, reject everything that fans want or expect, and just give them something that's twist. And I kind of love it, for that. I kind of love that it ended up with something that absolutely nobody wanted, and that's where the movie landed. But it would have been much more loved if they had just gotten the cameo right and the after credits right.
Okay, before I throw to Electra, 2 things on what you just said. We had a piece of content back in the day that signifies everything you're talking about, and it was called Mad Magazine. Straight up, that's what this movie was. But what you just said was, they said, we're going to stick it to you one last time. You don't like it, do you? We know you don't like it. So I was like,
but
that is modern Hollywood's entire attitude towards fans in general. It's the perfect ending to
the Snyderverse, right? This is exactly what we deserve.
Wait, Steve, and then Zeke. What'd you say, Steve?
Yeah, I was going to say, this is modern Hollywood's entire attitude towards fandom now, is embodied by that ending.
Yes. Okay, Zeke, now what'd you say?
I think it was just the perfect ending to the universe. I mean, this has been such an up and down ride with the Snyderverse that maybe this is how it had to end, right? It just had to end in shambles. And I love it because it is exactly what I needed as a catharsis. I'm ready to move on. Who's not ready to move on at this point, right? I mean, after you see that movie, you have to be ready to be like, all right, we've gone far enough. Let's reset. Let's do something else.
Okay, before I throw it to Electra, I'm gonna have to say this, Zig. Are you ready? Take a deep breath. You are more intelligent than the movie. You're giving it more credit than it deserves. That's your intelligence, and that's your ability to look at big picture thinking, and that's your ability to understand different levels of humor. That's you saying that. Okay, I don't believe for a second that they were thinking and writing whatever on the level that you can analyze on. Okay, so you're using that super brain power of yours to give them more credit than I think they deserve. I could be wrong, but I doubt it. Go ahead, Alexa.
I think we need those like director's tracks where the director speaks throughout the movie and tells us what he was thinking at every moment. Let's get those back.
I'll give you that. That's right. Go ahead, Electra. What do you think about that ending?
I don't know. I don't think I'm ready for them to give up on Aquaman just yet. They made an Aquaman movie that worked, and I don't know if they're going to be able to hit gold again with that character. It worked once. It's like Marvel managing to pull a universe together out of Iron Man, which never should have worked. And yet it did. Aquaman is not, was nobody's favorite character. And Jason Momoa is crazy popular right now. Why on earth would they burn him?
Because
who the heck are they going to replace him with?
Because of what Steve said. That's their attitude now. We're going to say it to you one more time. You like Aquaman, didn't you? He's a drunk fool, face down on the floor. Okay, thanks. So, I mean, okay, I have to say this. The reason the first Shazam movie made any kind of money was because big with superpowers is a gimmick, but it only works one time. That's why Tom Hanks only did it one time. That's not enough to base the second movie off of. Well, everybody's in love with Momoa, and Momoa's so hot, and blah, 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 blah. Okay, that'll work for that first movie. Second movie, you're going to have to tell a story. So people that get good sequels going. That's our best sequels in sci-fi. Empire, Wrath of Khan, Aliens. They got that. You got to tell a story. Bringing all the principal stars, actors back are good, but they have to be in a story. But now when you think, well, we'll just bring sexy guy back, we'll just bring funny guy back, that's not enough to make people support your people at all.
Right.
And
I think there is a lesson to be learned from all of this. I think the lesson is that the audience wants a level of earnestness and a level of sort of truth to be brought to their stories. We're just not in the same place that we were in 2020. We're just not there. The same place we were in 2019. We have changed as a people. We have changed as a world. And I think that we want our superheroes to be grounded and earnest in a way that we didn't really worry about before. And they're going to have to get on that train, or else no one's going to be going to the movies anymore.
Well, Steve said the magic word a little bit earlier. We expect our superheroes, when they have a movie, to have an arc. They have to move from here to there in the course of the movie. And it's not a TV episode. We expect something to happen to them and for them to learn and grow in the course of a movie.
See, Electra's a fan of...
Why are they getting our money?
Electra's a fan of strong writing, as I am as well. And I know Steve...
Writer, hi.
That's right. But everybody doesn't get with the things you say. That's why I love having you on my shows. The things that you say seem so obvious to you. Everybody don't get what you say. Just that little thing you said about arc. Everybody don't get that. You have to
Steve gets it.
But the writers, that's why they need to hire us. We get it. You have to have somebody going from something to something. Okay? They have to be after something. They have to change as a matter of their challenges and their obstacles. That's writing 101.
And I'm going to come watch all of your movies. I promise that. No question.
Oh, they coming. Don't you even worry about that.
I mean, it's not even that hard. This is why Star Wars did so well.
It is.
It was the hero's journey, for Christ's sake.
What worked for thousands of years and and made it fresh. Yeah,
I'm going to say the same thing to you that I said to Zig, Electra. You're smarter. You're smarter than a lot of the material. You are smarter. You understand writing so well, it feels like breathing to you. It's not like that for everybody. That's what I'm trying to tell you. That's why everybody...
No, I took the classes, man.
You can't be Simone Biles unless you are already...
late.
You can't be Simone Biles unless you are already her and you refine what's in you. You can't do anything.
We're going to have movies written by ChatGPT, so this is the problem we're going to face going forward.
This is what the studios are CGI done by ChatGPT.
So I mean,
That's a whole nother thing
Right.
about
Oh,
the
yeah.
whole
I mean, we've already
copyright
got it.
if they
involved
just
there.
did a focus group with superhero fans and superhero writers, if they just did a focus group and say, what could we do to make this work what the fans want? But they say, no, they keep doubling down in the other direction. So, okay, if you want to burn your empire to the ground, and can't nobody stop you.
The fans don't understand how to write. They just understand how to read.
Well, the one character in this film that I feel like was treated with respect was Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman. She's still kind of playful, still kind of winky, still kind of flirty. Definitely heavily flirting with Batfleck, which I thought was another fan service wink for those that like Wonder Bat. But she's the only one that I felt like wasn't diminished by her appearance. I felt like if that's the time we see her, that was a good, last time we see her, that was a good note to exit on. What'd you say, Zig? What,
I don't need another lasso joke. I did not need that. I did not need the 15th lasso joke.
But I didn't feel like her character. I don't feel like Diana. I thought any less of her after that. I thought she was just being the Diana, because we've been talking all session long about being true to the world that Snyder created, and I think she was, given the tenor and the tone of the film. Okay, so let me throw it out to y'all for final thoughts. Anything else you want to throw out that we didn't talk about, and then we'll wrap up. Steve.
Yeah, I'll just kind of give you my overall. I didn't like a lot of what they did on a technical level. There are things that I enjoy in an ironic sense. The CGI, I just honestly laugh at. Even the bit where, with the babies in the microwave and all of that, I was laughing at it because it's clear that they were not actually babies, and were not even, it's obvious that they used dolls and they just CGI'd them up. So there are a lot of things that I can enjoy on a laugh at way. I can enjoy Barry, or at least the older Barry, and some of the mid scenes with Keaton. I can enjoy that, and anything that Keaton's in is fun to watch. There's enough there that I can watch it and don't feel like I completely wasted my time, but I can't take it seriously, and I can't take it the way that the movie wants me to intending me to see it as a comedy, because I think the jokes they're trying to do intentionally are not funny. The things they are doing unintentionally, I laughed at quite a bit. So, I don't think it was a complete waste of my time, but it is definitely not a movie that I would go back and see again, except for the Keaton parts.
Okay, Electra, final thoughts.
Worth watching, but not running out to the theater for. Wait till it's, available on whatever your cable service is. In the meantime, go see, rent Birdman, which, you can get all the Keaton out of, and he's the star of that one. And it's got superhero and Keaton all the way through. So there's my final thought.
Zig.
So I learned a lot from the movie and the experience of watching the movie and then hearing the reaction to the movie. I think it's been really informative. I know that I can love a movie that is being intelligently silly. And I think this movie was being intelligently silly. I don't think it was being stupid in terms of the writing, in terms of what it was going for. I totally agree. It was substandard in terms of the CGI and in terms of the effects. Just don't show things if you don't have the money to show things. But ultimately, it taught me to respect fans that think differently than I do a lot more, because I think that I can give credence to what other people are saying. I can understand where other people are coming from, and I understand the criticism of this film. And I don't feel defensive about this film the way I might another film, and I think that's really helped me in this sort of the global picture of what we're talking about here, which is I'm okay with 90% of the world kind of hating this movie, even while I loved it, because I got the joke, and I think it was a purposeful joke.
He said intelligently silly. I say they was being silly. You added the intelligent part, but I'm gonna leave that right there. All right. Thanks to all my guests. Thanks to all of you that have watched this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe to my channel, share this video, and ring the bell so you know when I have a new drop. And I will see you the next time in my next movie review.